Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. And I rise to continue the argument in favour and for this structural reform bill, the Social Services Legislation Amendment Family Payments Structural Reform Bill of 2015. And what a tremendous contribution the member for Dunkley just made to succinctly, I think, put the case for this measure, but to also cast our minds back a little as to the reason that we have found ourselves in this position. The member for Adelaide had a little bit to say through that particular contribution, but oh how the memories are so short on the other side of this parliamentary chamber. Mr Deputy Speaker, the government has proposed these amendments to the bill to remove measures that do not have Labor support. But we're still here, fighting the good fight for a good cause, and that is to find the savings that are required to be able to invest in a 21st century, much-needed, reformed childcare sector. But Labor has turned a $4.7 billion package, which I said does pay for the childcare, they've turned it into a $525 million down payment. And to steal the words of the previous member who just spoke, they missed by just that much. But we shouldn't be surprised by that, because we had 6 years of a government that missed by just that much. That much that every day now, those that are listening, those that are watching, you need to understand that for every day, every morning when your alarm clock rings and you wake up for another great day, because any day you're breathing is a great day, that the taxpayers of Australia will have to find $100 million today. $100 million today just to pay the interest on the debt left by the previous Labor government. But they missed by just that much. Just that much. $100 million a day is just an extraordinary amount of money that we have to find every day just to pay the interest. And I would continue to say to the Australian people, focus on that. Focus on that. You elected a government to actually bring the finances of your country back into line. Back into line and back into a state that we in some way can leave a better future for our children and grandchildren than what we currently face at the moment. We were elected with a mandate, Mr Deputy Speaker, to do that. And it's fair to say that at pretty much every turn in the last 2 years of this democratically elected government, that we find ourselves continually bashing our fiscal head up against the wall. Now, we hear a lot in this place about fairness. We hear a lot about being equitable. And I would say to those opposite, what's fair? What's fair about loading my children, the grandchildren that I don't yet have, and everyone else's families? What's fair about loading these people into the future up with massive debt? We wouldn't tolerate it in our own family. But we think that this government, democratically elected government, should tolerate it forever. That we should continue to put our expenditure on a massive trajectory. But maybe Labor just want us to say, well, just ratchet up taxes to pay for it. Well, no. We need to make sure that this country remains productive and competitive. To continue to raise taxes just to pay for undisciplined, out-of-control expenditure is not acceptable in anybody's language. Well, certainly not the language that we speak on this side of the House. We hear a lot, Mr Deputy Speaker, about being equitable. Well, what's equitable, Mr Deputy Speaker, about an opposition, a Labor Party that claims to be the alternate government? What's equitable about running a protection racket each and every day for militant unions at the expense of the remaining 85% of the non-public servant workforce to have to pick up the tab, to continue to work so hard, the farmers, the small businesses I don't see much of a protection racket being run by those opposite for those people. But they have their favourites. They continue to pander and reward those favourites, but at the expense of those people that are the absolute and ultimate economic contributors, wealth makers of this country. The government, Mr Deputy Speaker, wants to help families find affordable child care. And I'm sure that sentence that I just spoke here would resonate with most of the hard-working families of this country. They need us to help them find affordable childcare. This is an extremely important productivity measure that will boost female workforce participation, that will actually be an economic enabler across our nation. And we as a government stand ready, Mr Deputy Speaker, to invest almost $40 billion, that's $40,000 million over the next 4 years, into childcare. This includes the extra $3.5 million into the Jobs for Families package to make childcare simpler, more flexible and more accessible. And the government is committed, Mr Deputy Speaker, to supporting parents in raising their children. We are also committed to ensuring the family and childcare systems remain targeted, sustainable and effective into the long term by reforming the family tax benefit system. Mr Deputy Speaker, on this side of the House we spend a great deal of time looking beyond today. That's what we're elected to do. It's not about political survival. It's not about my political tenure as the local member for Braddon. It's not about even the Liberal or National Party. I thought that we were all elected to do what was best for the country, to ensure that this nation's prosperity is sustainable and effective. And we can't continue, Mr Deputy Speaker, to be either sustainable or effective with massive debt over our head and an undisciplined approach to expenditure which will ultimately lead just to ongoing deficits. Every budget spending more than we earn. Any person with a modicum of common sense would know that that is unsustainable. And whilst we hear a lot about individual stories and cameos, and I accept that in any change of government policy there will be people across the nation that are impacted more than others. But I haven't been elected, the government hasn't been elected to develop policy for individuals. The government is elected to develop policies for the prosperity and the betterment of the nation as a whole. And that's what this bill is about. It's about taking advantage of the need to find funds for a childcare system that is absolutely in need of reform. Our welfare system is growing beyond the reasonable capacity of taxpayers to pay for it. Again, to those watching or listening, hear this. For every person that takes home a paycheck this week, this fortnight, for every 10 of those people, 8 of you, 8 of us, our tax that we pay goes to pay the welfare bill of the nation. 8 out of 10 of every hard-working taxpayer's taxes go to pay just the welfare bill of the country. The welfare system in this country should be about being a safety net. That's what it's about. And any fair-minded Australian would agree that their taxes should and can be used with their blessing to protect the vulnerable. This country is great like that. They get that. But what they don't get is when their hard-earned taxes are sustaining a system that is inherently not there as a safety net, but has become some system of what shall I say, support that some people think just now is to be expected each and every day. Mr Deputy Speaker, from July 1st, 2016, couple families under this bill, couple families eligible for FTPB other than grandparents, will only receive the payment while their youngest child is aged under 13 years. Now, this replaces the 14-15 budget measure, which reduced that payment eligibility to 6. The government will continue, though, to provide vulnerable families, such as single parents and grandparent carers, with FTPB assistance until their youngest child turns 13. These changes will enable us to invest more heavily into giving Australian children the best start in life. As a result of the new childcare package that we have spoken about, families using childcare services from July 2017 with incomes of between $65,000 and $170,000, will be on an average of $30 a week better off. The Jobs for Families package has several components, including a 2-year national nanny pilot program to support around 10,000 children in families finding it difficult to access standard childcare services. And can I say, as the elected member for Braddon, where some of my electorate, not the majority but a significant part of my electorate, are in locations, geographical locations, that find it very difficult to access childcare. Now, the member for Adelaide obviously knows my electorate better than me by the look of the squinty look that I just got across the chamber, but I think I know my electorate, and I can say that the nanny pilot program that is designed to provide that care for 10,000 children, I think will be warmly welcomed in my electorate. It will open up possibilities for mums and dads across my electorate that don't currently exist. And the government want to provide choices, creative choices for people to find the childcare system that works for them. The childcare subsidy will simplify what is currently a very complicated system by replacing 3 payments: the childcare benefit, childcare rebate and jobs, education and training childcare fee assistance. The child safety net fee will provide targeted support to vulnerable families and childcare services in disadvantaged communities. Stricter immunisation requirements for receiving childcare subsidies and support under the Australian Government's No Jab, No Pay policy. Mr Deputy Speaker, as I try and wrap this up, can I just say the government is absolutely committed to continue to assist families in raising their children over the long term. But can I stress the long term, because I want to go back to the point that I made. Good government policy has an eye to the future. It's not about our political fortunes today. It's not a band-aid fix that we're looking at. We're looking at generational change to a policy that is currently out of date, far too complicated and does need some serious reform. But we are committed to families in the long term. And I say to the people of Braddon that if you want a sustainable welfare system that's there as a safety net, if you desire effective childcare for not only your own children but probably shortly your grandchildren, it has to be affordable. The nation's finances have to be in order, and sometimes governments need to make decisions that will be taken advantage of by our political opponents. But I think the Australian people, Mr Deputy Speaker, the electorate that I certainly represent, and I'm sure the other 149 electorates are exactly the same, and that is that they seriously understand the need for this government to get the finances of the country under control. They have a view that they are prepared to do what's in the best interest of the country if we explain it, if we find a national fairness about it, but it's not helped by the deceit and the militant action of some who just seek to destroy the future of our country. And I say to those opposite, get with the program, stop thinking about today and start thinking about tomorrow. I thank the House.